My daughter was thrilled to receive the pink dress, a birthday gift from her grandparents, and so was I, knowing that my parents hadn't forgotten their granddaughter's birthday. But when my little girl proudly showed me the embroidered name, Sophie, on the dress, the fury from my past reignited in an instant. Sophie is my beautiful older sister, the one who once caused devastating consequences for our family, then walked away. And I was the one left to clean up the mess. But before I dig into the past that I'll never forget, not even in death, tell me, where are you watching this story from? Leave a comment below, and don't forget to like and subscribe, so I can tell you the whole truth. I am Madison, 33 years old, living in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, a simple single mother and a daughter who had always tried to please her family. That afternoon, I was preparing for my daughter Lily's 6th birthday. The kitchen was filled with the scent of vanilla cookies, pastel balloons were strung everywhere, and Lily was happily running around in the little princess dress she had chosen herself. Only a few of her friends came over, but the atmosphere was warm and full of joy. Then the door opened. A surprise gift had been delivered from my parents, Lily's grandparents. I was momentarily surprised. Lily tore the wrapping paper excitedly, her eyes lit up at the sight of a cute pink dress. But then she paused, holding the dress, tilting her head and asking, "Mommy, who's Sophie?" I turned and saw the words, "Little Sophie," delicately embroidered on the collar. My whole body froze, like a gust of cold wind had swept through in the middle of summer. My hands trembled as I held the dress. It was just a gift, and yet the past crashed over me, layer after layer. Sophie, my sister, 3 years older than me, the perfect daughter in my parents' eyes. Beautiful, radiant, dynamic. And I, Madison, was always the backup option, the obedient daughter, constantly compared, and always falling short. My childhood was made of forgotten birthday parties, of the time I won the citywide speech contest, but everyone was too busy worrying about Sophie's latest heartbreak. It was made of nights I cried alone because they told me, "Don't be selfish. Your sister needs attention." I learned how to stay silent, how to smile for others, how to please everyone, except myself. As we grew older, Sophie launched a fashion brand that sounded impressive, and she convinced the whole family to invest. I warned my parents, pointed out the risks, the red flags, but they brushed me off, said I was jealous, said all I ever did was criticize. Then one day, Sophie vanished, along with all the money the family had poured in. My parents were devastated, but the one who stepped up to deal with the aftermath was me, the daughter they never trusted. I paid off the bank debt, fixed the leaking roof, sent money every month to help my parents get through it. And slowly they smiled again, started traveling again, slowly forgot everything I had done. But I never forgot. I never wanted to be loved more than Sophie. I just wanted to be seen, to be heard. And today, when the words "Little Sophie" appeared before Lily, my daughter, I was no longer just the overlooked daughter of yesterday. I was a mother. And for the first time in my life, I realized it's time I stopped letting old memories define the new life my daughter is building. After Lily's birthday, I woke up very early, tidied the living room, and placed the pink dress into a small wooden box. I didn't throw it away. I wasn't cold enough for that, but I wasn't brave enough to look at it again either. Ever since Sophie disappeared, I've been living like a machine, working days at the counseling center, caring for Lily at night, spending weekends cleaning, doing laundry, and carefully budgeting how much to send to my parents. They live about an hour's drive away in the old house with the wooden porch and my father's rocking chair. I was the one who paid to repaint that porch. I was also the one who rewired the house and replaced the heating system that winter. My parents never asked, but they accepted and slowly got used to accepting. On the 5th of every month, I'd transfer $750 to their account, not much, but enough to keep them from worrying about the bills. In return, there were brief phone calls, a few messages asking about Lily, and not a single mention of Sophie. as if her name were forbidden in that house. But that silence never made me feel protected. On the contrary, it made me feel like an emotional wallet, paying up and being expected to understand. Whenever I brought up my hurt, the memories of abandonment, my mother would gently but firmly say, "She's still your sister, after all." Once, I cried over the phone, and my father only said quietly, "You must be tired. Get some rest." I don't know why I kept going. Maybe I hoped that one day they would realize that I was their daughter, too. That I, too, deserved love, even if I wasn't beautiful or dazzling like Sophie. Then one day, I stopped by their house to drop off some small gifts for Easter. While my mother was preparing orange juice, my father, never good with phones, asked me to check a message because the font was too small. I picked up his phone and saw a short message from someone named E.L. Sophie. The content was simple. "Thanks, Dad. I'll get it tomorrow morning." I tried to stay calm and scrolled up to see a recent money transfer, $3,000. I looked at my father, but he just smiled and said, "She just needed a bit of money. Don't tell your mother, okay?" I didn't say anything. I just clenched the phone and placed it on the table, my chest tightening. I drove home in silence, Lily humming a nursery rhyme in the back seat. I couldn't stop thinking, how many years have I spent supporting people who never really chose me, only for them to still choose Sophie in the end, like muscle memory, as if I never existed. I couldn't stay silent anymore. The next morning, after Lily had gone to school, I called my mother. Her voice was gentle, like always. "Hello? Madison, sweetie? Your father loved that cake you brought over yesterday." I cut in, trying to keep my voice calm. "Mom, I want to ask you something. Are you sending money to Sophie?" There was a suffocating pause on the other end. Then she replied, not quickly, not slowly. "She needs it, sweetheart. She's sorry now. I didn't tell you because I didn't want you to feel upset." I gripped the phone, trying not to cry. "I'm not upset. I'm angry. Because I've done everything for this family while she conned us, disappeared, and now she gets money again and no one tells me." My mother sighed. "Madison, don't be so selfish. She's still your sister. Family has to be forgiving." Family? That word suddenly felt so foreign. In that family, who had ever forgiven me? Whoever asked if I was tired, if I was okay, while I was a single mom breaking my back to pay someone else's debt? I ended the call with a request to take a break for a while. But the truth was, I didn't need rest. I needed clarity. I started going to therapy every Wednesday, without fail. There, for the first time in my life, I was asked a question no one had ever asked me before. "And what about Madison? How does she feel?" I didn't know how to answer. I had spent my whole life trying to please. I had lived as if my worth only existed in what I could do for others. I had dug a hole and buried my feelings in it, in exchange for acceptance. But now, I was a mother and I knew, if I didn't stop, Lily would learn to live the same way, to sacrifice in order to be loved. I didn't want her to become a copy of me. I began journaling, listing every time I had been hurt, every effort I had made that was never acknowledged. A long list, so long it shocked even me. One night, after Lily had fallen asleep, I looked at the pink, little Sophie dress in the box. And I knew, it wasn't just a dress. It was proof of a cycle of pain that had lasted far too long. I wanted to break it. I wanted to give Lily a life where no one defined her by someone else's name. I had planned to cut ties with my parents right then, but I softened. I thought about Lily, how she always lit up when she heard Grandma and Grandpa. I didn't want her caught in the crossfire of generational wounds. I told myself, just keep your distance. No need for drama. No need to tell Lily everything. And I kept my word. Until that dress appeared. One Monday morning, after the birthday, I received a text from my mother. "Did Lily's dress fit okay? It's a gift from your sister, Sophie." I froze. I had thought the gift came from my parents, but it was from the very person who had left me to shoulder the burden. I replied with just one sentence. "Thanks. But I don't want Lily wearing clothes with someone else's name on them." My mother read the message, but didn't respond. That entire day, I felt like I was sitting on a bed of coals. I was angry, afraid, torn apart. I had tried to maintain distance, but they didn't. They didn't just cross the line, they did it deliberately. That night, I sat alone in the small study next to my bedroom, holding an old photo of me and Sophie as children. In the photo, I was wearing one of her old dresses, faded floral, oversized, my hair messy while she smiled radiantly. I looked at that picture and cried. I had been that little girl, the one who wore hand-me-downs, who stayed silent when compared, who only wanted to be seen. And now Lily, my daughter, was being placed in that same position. I couldn't let it happen again. I opened my laptop and wrote a short email to my parents. From today, I will no longer be providing financial support, nor will I maintain contact. Please respect this decision. I read it 3 times, made no edits, and hit send. Done. I sat there in the dark, no longer angry, just a weightless sadness and a deep, spreading silence in my chest. 2 weeks after that email, I received no reply, not a single message, no phone call from my parents. I almost believed it would end like that, quietly and coldly, the way relationships in my family usually ended, with no apology, no acknowledgement. Until one night, while I was getting ready to wash Lily's hair, my phone buzzed with a video call from an unknown number. I nearly didn't answer, but then I saw it was Sophie. She was sitting in a luxury hotel room with warm, golden light from a minibar behind her. She wore a silk blouse from a high-end brand I'd seen in magazines. "Didn't think you'd pick up." Sophie smiled, her voice light, as if nothing had ever happened. I stayed silent for a moment, then said, "I wasn't going to, but I wanted to hear what you had to say." She raised an eyebrow, tilted her head. "Funny, you caused such a stir over a little dress." I looked directly at the screen. "You know exactly why. And you know sending that dress was no accident." Sophie smirked, neither denying nor surprised. "Of course it wasn't. I wanted Lily to have something from my new brand. A little gift from the family." I felt a chill run down my spine, not because she lied, but because she told the truth so casually. "Have you ever thought that maybe you were wrong?" I asked, for the first time, from deep within me, a question I had carried for years. Sophie shrugged, took a sip of wine. "I was just smarter. In a family where the survivor gets the love, I did what I had to do. And you?" She trailed off. I didn't need to hear the rest. I spoke clearly, firmly. "From now on, I'm no longer your sister." Sophie froze for a second, then smiled, as if she had been waiting for those words. "Your choice, but you're still the same weak girl you've always been." I hung up. No screaming, no tears. I just felt light. So light, it was unfamiliar. That night, I stayed up almost until dawn, closing every bank account connected to my parents, canceling all automatic transfers, updating my banking records. I blocked phone numbers, emails, and social media accounts of everyone from my old family, not because I hated them, but because I needed to protect the peace I had spent my youth building. Before going to bed, I took out my will, changed Lily's guardian in case something happened to me. Her new guardian is Julia, my best friend from college, who loves Lily like her own. I removed my parents' names from all decisions related to my daughter. For the first time, I set boundaries. And for the first time, I understood love should never mean sacrificing yourself to the point of disappearance. The days that followed passed in complete silence. No more messages, no more calls, no more half-hearted check-ins I once mistook for affection. I thought I would feel empty, but, strangely, the only feeling I had was peace, as if I had just stepped out of a stifling room, one I had lived in so long I forgot what free air smelled like. I spent more time with Lily. We went to the park on Sunday mornings, learned to make banana bread on rainy afternoons, and painted on the living room floor. No fear of mess, no worry about anyone complaining. I began tidying the house, not just the objects, but the remnants of old memories. I gathered everything related to Sophie, old family photos, letters, birthday mementos that had been overshadowed, and placed them in a separate box. I didn't burn them. I didn't throw them away. I simply put them away. A way to close the past with clarity, not anger. One time, as I was folding laundry, Lily asked, "Mommy, why haven't Grandma and Grandpa called lately?" I froze for a few seconds, then sat down beside her. Because Mommy is learning to take care of herself first, so she can take better care of you. Lily didn't ask more. She just nodded and hugged me. In that tiny embrace, I saw more clearly than ever why I had to be strong. Not to get back at anyone, but to end a toxic cycle that had lingered for generations. I didn't want Lily to grow up thinking love always came with conditions. During that time, I also started a blog, initially just private notes, but gradually it became a public space where I shared my journey of setting boundaries, healing, and finding myself again after the wounds of family. I didn't expect it, but hundreds, perhaps thousands of women reached out, saying they too had been the Madison in their families. Some said they cried reading the part where I changed the guardian for my daughter. Some said they had just blocked their mother's number for the first time in their lives, drawing courage from my writing. I realized, maybe Sophie thinks I'm weak. But weakness isn't refusing to fight. Weakness is knowing the truth and still staying silent to preserve the illusion of family. And I had stopped doing that. I chose the truth. I chose myself. I used to think silence was the end. But then one day, while picking Lily up from school, my phone rang. It was an unknown number, and instinctively, I didn't answer. A few minutes later, a voicemail came through. My mother's voice played, shaky, laced with anger and sobs. "Madison, when did you become such a stranger? You cut us off over a dress? You're breaking your mother's heart." I listened to the entire message, no skipping, no pausing. Then came another message. This time from my father. "Your mother and I need to cover some bills. If you don't send the regular transfers, don't blame us for cutting you out of the family." I sat silently in the car. Lily sat in the back seat, sucking on the lollipop her teacher had given her. Outside the window, rain began to fall softly, tracing lines down the windshield like the quiet stream of emotions rising in me. I didn't feel pain anymore. Not shock, not anger. Just a cold confirmation of something I'd always known deep down, that in their eyes I had never been a daughter. Never blood. I was a utility. A means to an end, a financial bridge built on obligation and sacrifice. And when I could no longer fulfill that role, they were ready to erase me, like crossing out a line item that no longer served a purpose. I opened my phone and went into the old family group chat. I typed each word slowly but surely. "I am not the one who betrayed anyone. I just stopped pretending everything was fine. If living truthfully means I'm cut out of this family, then it was never truly my family." I hit send. I didn't wait for replies. I knew this time, I wouldn't return. That evening, I took an old piece of fabric and began cutting small pieces to sew a new dress for Lily, this time with no name but her own. And as I stitched the words "Lily Grace" into the soft cotton, each needlepoint felt like a step I was taking to sew myself back together after so many years torn apart by chasing love the wrong way. I didn't cry after those messages, not like before. Maybe because I had cycled through every emotion with them: hope, hurt, rage, then acceptance. And now, all I felt was clarity. There was nothing left to hold on to. The very next morning, I went to the bank and canceled every recurring payment I had set up for years. One by one, home repairs, medical extras, monthly living costs. They were all removed, like undoing the last links of a chain that had tied me to a role they assigned. I left no notes, wrote no explanations, because by now, if they still didn't understand, no words would ever be enough. After that, I met with my attorney, the same one who helped draft my will and establish Lily's guardianship. I asked for an update to legally prohibit any member of my former family from contacting my daughter in case I was gone. I didn't do it out of hate, but out of protection, to shield Lily from the same kind of damage that had haunted me all my life. A week later, I changed my phone number, deleted the old family group chats, and unfollowed every one of them on social media. Every channel closed, every door locked. I kept one thing for myself, the small wooden box holding the little Sophie dress. I didn't throw it away. I wrapped it in white cotton cloth and placed it in the deepest drawer of the memory chest. Not to hold on to the past, but to remind myself, some things must never be repeated. And that same day, I stood in Lily's bedroom, watching her sleep peacefully in her new dress, the one I had sewn with my own hands, embroidered with Lily Grace in shimmering silver thread. She smiled in her sleep, her tiny fingers clutching the corner of her pillow. I leaned down and kissed her forehead. In that moment, I knew one thing with absolute clarity. I hadn't just ended a relationship. I had begun a new generation, a new cycle. One where love comes without condition, where presence is welcomed without needing to be earned, and where my daughter will grow up with a mother who knows how to say no when needed, so she can one day learn to say yes to herself. A year has passed, quietly, without fanfare, as if time itself wanted me to relearn how to live without needing validation from anyone but myself. Since the day I cut ties with my old family, no one has reached out again. Not a single call, not an email, not even a casual check-in. And I haven't waited for it. That silence, instead of making me feel alone, became a vast space, where, for the first time in years, I could truly breathe. I spent more time caring for myself. Unhurried mornings, gentle cups of tea, books I once abandoned because I was too busy being the good one. I took Lily camping at Lake Erie, learned alongside her how to start a fire, pitch a tent, and listened as she told me stories, innocent and sincere in a way I had never once heard from my own family. Then, on a late autumn afternoon, while browsing at the little bookstore down the street, I ran into Daniel, a former colleague I had worked with years ago on a community project. Daniel didn't ask why I had disappeared from gatherings, didn't pry into personal matters. He just smiled and said, "Haven't seen you post in a while. I still read everything you write." We started texting again, occasionally taking walks in the park on weekends, letting Lily play with his little dog. There was no rush, no promises. But in that stillness, I found myself laughing more. Not the kind of laugh meant to keep others comfortable, but a real one, because I finally felt whole. And if anyone was going to walk beside me, they'd have to love the scars I carried too. This new life of mine didn't arrive in grand gestures. It came from the smallest details, from tending my backyard garden with my own hands, planting lavender and white daisies, to sewing dresses for Lily, each stitch straight and careful, something I never thought I could do. Every morning, I woke up earlier, made breakfast for the two of us, no more rushing, no more snapping. On some days, Daniel would stop by early, bringing waffles and a quiet smile. He didn't try to insert himself into my life. He simply showed up, quietly listening, ready to stay if I wanted him to. No one can replace what has been lost. But sometimes, just having someone who doesn't leave halfway through, that's enough to begin healing what was once shattered. At a parent-teacher conference, Lily's teacher shared that she had become more confident lately, eager to help her classmates, and showed natural leadership skills. I was surprised. Lily used to be the child who clung to my legs, anxious and afraid of doing something wrong. But now, she had carved her own place in her little world. I went home and opened the old journal where I used to jot down thoughts from therapy sessions. I flipped back to the first pages, where I had once written, "I don't know if I deserve happiness." I no longer question that. I know now. Happiness isn't a reward for sacrifice. It's something we are inherently worthy of if we dare to choose ourselves. One evening, while cleaning out an old wardrobe, I found the wooden box with the little Sophie dress. I sat down, opened the lid, and stared at it for a long time. The pink fabric that once made my hands tremble now was just a piece of cloth. It no longer held power over me. I took a small piece of paper and wrote, "The past cannot be changed, but the present is mine." Then placed it inside the box, closed the lid, and set it on the highest shelf, like a memory that had finally been put in its rightful place. Lily ran into the room, hugged me from behind. "Mommy, can we bake cookies tomorrow?" I turned around, held her close, and listened to the rhythm of her heartbeat against my chest. In that moment, I knew with absolute clarity, I had done the right thing. Not just for my daughter, but for the little girl inside me who had waited her whole life to be protected. That morning, the Pittsburgh sky was unusually clear after many days of drizzle. Lily and I rolled our bikes out of the garage, both of us in light jackets, hand in hand, walking our bikes down a maple-lined street, beginning to change color with the season. I couldn't remember the last time I'd biked leisurely. Maybe it was back in college, when I still believed that effort always led to reward. But this morning, I wasn't looking for a reward. I just wanted to live this moment fully. We stopped at a grassy patch near the public library, where willow trees drooped low and a gravel path circled a pond. I laid out a picnic blanket. Lily sat reading a book while I opened the wooden box I had brought with me, the one that held the little Sophie dress. I didn't tell her what it was. I simply opened the lid, gently smoothed the edges of the fabric, and folded it one last time. Then I placed it into a recycled cardboard box, tied it shut, and walked over to the donation bin outside the library. I slid the box in and closed my eyes for a few seconds. No ceremony, no tears. Just a long breath, like I had just untied a knot that had cinched my heart for 3 decades. When I turned back, Lily looked up and asked, "What did you do, Mommy?" I smiled, sat down beside her, and said, "I just let go of something old, to make space for something new." She nodded thoughtfully, then returned to her book, asking no more. I watched her light brown hair flutter in the wind and realized life isn't always fair, isn't always gentle, but if we know how to hold on to what is kind and release what is harmful, then no matter how the past was written, we still have the right to rewrite the present. I'm no longer the girl living in someone else's shadow. I'm no longer the sister who was expected to understand. I am Madison, a mother, a woman, and someone who has learned to rise from unfairness, not to defeat anyone, but simply not to lose myself. Thank you for listening to my story, a journey that was never loud, never dramatic, but painfully honest. If you've ever felt like an outsider in your own family, had to sacrifice to be loved, stayed silent to keep the peace, then maybe you'll understand how long it took for me to finally say, enough. I'm not telling this story to place blame. I'm telling it so others like me know they're not alone, that setting boundaries is not selfish, that choosing yourself is not betrayal, and that walking away from what is no longer healthy sometimes is the very way we preserve the goodness that still lives in our hearts. If you're on that journey too, or just beginning to realize something is wrong, leave a comment below. Tell me where you're watching from, and if you feel ready, share a bit about your own path. And don't forget to like and subscribe so I can keep telling you true stories from real lives just like yours and mine.